Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Horror Trans. I am Stephanie Bree. I am a transgender woman who talks about all things horror. And today I'm looking at the John Carpenter horror icon. John Carpenter is an interesting fellow in the horror filmmaking pantheon, ethos. I don't know. I'm mixing up words here. Because he got his start doing B movies, and he's most famous for his horror movies. But he has gone on record as saying he didn't really see himself as a horror filmmaker, and he has tried to break away from horror, unsuccessfully so, because he has pretty much been typecast as a horror filmmaker, and he tends to do better when he's making horror than other stuff. It not maybe necessarily because that's what he wants to do, but because that's what the studios will give him to do, and he's pretty much like, well, I got to do what pays the bills, you know? You got to do what you got to do. Now, as far as horror icons go, he's given us a couple of good ones. First, Halloween from 1978. He gave us Michael Myers and that whole franchise, which is still kind of sort of going to this day. He also gave us some side quests like The Fog, which I believe I've already reviewed The Fog. If not, it's on my list. Good movie, more or less. He's done some really weird movies in the 90s that I haven't reviewed yet, so I don't want to talk about those here because they're kind of like off-brand for him. And then he's done a couple of B-movie action movies. Most notably, They Live, which is pseudo-horror, and Escape from New York, which is pretty much action, and Big Trouble in Little China, which is like horror meets kung fu meets sci-fi fantasy, kind of whatever. You know, it's kind of like a Mortal Kombat movie. You know, it's a little bit of everything. Even influenced Mortal Kombat in some ways. So, you know, thumbs up for there because I love Mortal Kombat. Beyond that, he hasn't done much else that's really noteworthy. You know, he hasn't even really been that involved with the Halloween franchise since pretty much the beginning. He pretty much created Halloween and said, here you go. And then he just like walked away and said, yeah, I'm done. So he told the story he wanted to tell and walked away. As a filmmaker, I would argue John Carpenter is a mixed bag. He sometimes knocks it out of the park. He sometimes crosses the finish line, but just barely. And sometimes he's like walking in circles, talking to himself, staring at the moon, and you're like, dude, are you okay? And you just don't really know, you know? He also did The Thing, which I was very careful not to talk about because I don't remember if I've reviewed it yet or not, and I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about movies I haven't reviewed. Now, I can talk about They Live because that's not really a horror movie, and I probably won't review it for the channel. If I already did, I don't remember, but if I did, you know, I said what I said. And I can talk about Big Trouble in Little China, and I can talk about Escape from New York, because those aren't even horror movies, you know? Big Trouble in Little China, as far as I'm concerned, is his best film. It's him just doing what he wants to do. You know, he was finally given the reins to just have fun and make a movie that wasn't horror, that wasn't a slasher. The expectation was he's just gonna have fucking fun with it, and he did. He made a fun fucking movie, and I love it. A lot of people like The Thing and cite it as probably one of their favorite horror movies or one of the, quote, best horror movies. I have opinions on that. I don't think it's the best of anything. I don't think it's a bad movie, but like I said, I want to talk about it when I review it. And I haven't checked if I've reviewed it yet or not, and I don't know if it's on my list. Let me see if it's on my list. So first thing I'll do is check if it's even on the list. Because I may have already reviewed it. I don't remember, but I should have done some research before making this video. The Thing. I don't see The Thing on my list, so let's just make sure I haven't already reviewed it. Because if I have, I'll go ahead and talk about it, and if I haven't, I'll stay away from it. So let me just bring up my channel real quick and see if I've already reviewed it. So, The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing. Yep, it looks like I did already do it 2 months ago. Did I already do They Live? They Live. Looks like I did already talk about They Live. Alright, so I apologize. Man, 2 months ago feels like forever. Because December was a long ass month. So I don't enjoy They Live, but I don't hate it. I think it's a fine movie for what it is. But if you're gonna sit here and like talk about John Carpenter, for me, I'm not gonna talk about They Live because it didn't impact me like some of his other films did. But I'll talk about The Thing. The Thing is one that I am very opinionated on. Most of my opinion of The Thing is like Halloween. I think it's a good movie. I do. I just don't think it's as good as people say it is. It's not like best of the best, top anything. If I was making a list of top 100, I'll do this. If I was making a list of the top 100 horror movies of all time, I don't know if The Thing is even on that list. I just don't know. You know, I just don't know. It certainly isn't in my top 10. I just can't say I'm a big fan of The Thing. I don't hate The Thing. It's just not like my go-to horror movie like it is for some people. Now, as far as Escape from New York goes, this is probably one of the better political thrillers I've ever seen. So it is one of my go-to sci-fi political thrillers. So I'll give him that. I feel like he's better at that than he is at horror. I know, blasphemy. I've already talked about Halloween to death. So just to recap, I like the franchise as a whole. I'm okay with Michael Myers as a villain. I have issues with Michael Myers, but he doesn't like piss me off like he used to. I've kind of softened on him a little bit. But that first Halloween movie is just a fucking snooze fest. I fall asleep every time I try to fucking watch it. It's not the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it just irritates me how everybody's automatically like, you have to love Halloween. It's the greatest horror movie ever. And I'm like, is it? Are you sure? No. So, as a horror icon goes, no disrespect to John Carpenter. I just feel like he's a mixed bag. And, you know, I just don't feel like his heart is in making horror pictures. Yet he gets constantly, I don't want to say forced to, but kind of coerced into making horror when it's not his cup of tea. And I think this is evidenced by the fact that his horror movies tend to be divisive, because a lot of horror fans don't like some of his horror movies, despite the vocal minority who sings his praises all day long. That being said, he's still a good dude. I think he makes some great films. He's made some not so great films, but that can be said of anybody. Overall, I picked John Carpenter because he just had a birthday this past week, and I thought it would be a good time to talk about him. And, you know, I don't really give filmmakers a rating, like a letter grade or anything. But if I did, I would say he's a B- filmmaker. You know? Not bad, not great, not bad. Pretty good most of the time. Good when he's good, bad when he's bad, and just okay the rest of the time is what I'll say about John Carpenter. You know, but I get the feeling that a lot of times he's making horror movies because that's all they'll let him make, and he just really doesn't want to. And I just don't feel like he has the passion and the mindset of a horror filmmaker to really make good horror movies. he makes okay to, better than okay horror movies, but I just don't think he makes the greatest horror movie of all time level of horror movies that some people think he does or say he does. Now, if you love his films, that's good. That's good on you. I just don't. I don't hate him. I don't love him. I'm just kind of take him or leave him. You know what I mean? Stay cool.